Welcome to another episode of Black Lagoon Reviews,
where we metaphorically slice and dice our way through horror films of old and new.
I'm Brian, definitely not patient zero in a Cronenbergian pandemic.
I'm Nicholas Alexander Hax, totally not a cheap knockoff of Christopher Walken.
Watch our reaction, that'll click. And before we get into the show, we have to thank our generous supporters. Currently it's Mr. Kronstein and other. Zahn, is it?
Zahn.
I like Zahn because it has this intergalactic element to it. That's like we have intergalactic support on here at Black Lagoon.
Neo before Zahn.
Zahn. But it's Zane, which is a little bit more tame. Nick, what did we watch?
So we watched David Cronenberg's RABID, where a woman who's most of the time naked.
Most of the time, yeah.
Who has a certain little secret lying within her armpit?
Yeah, that was the location.
She fails to tell off-brand Travolta,
John Cusack, Christopher Walken. We established that that's who that main character
with
like.
With a hint of Nick Cage at the end.
Definitely, at the end.
With that meltdown.
Yes.
That she has a dick in her armpit, and she's going around and she's fucking people, giving them STD rabies.
Like, I'm over here, like, normally this is your section, your inaccurate synopsis. Everything you're saying is kind of right. Like, that is kind of what was happening, and the movie's so overflowing with the sexual imagery. Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
So the idea is this is orienting the viewer. This is going to make the movie make sense, and then we can go on to our review. I don't think you can do that with a Cronenberg movie. This was kind of a wild film, so if you feel lost, don't worry. We're going to give you a quick spoiler-free review. In your brief overview, what were your feelings about this movie after we watched it?
I had a lot of mixed feelings. I was expecting something a little bit more as what we've been sort of watching, which was more slow burn than anything. But with body horror, obviously, I felt mixed because everything was starting off really fast, and then there are certain things within the storyline that kind of just don't add up, plot point wise. Right. And it just felt thrown in without making any sense whatsoever, and it kind of ruined it for me. But the main plot point that really bugs me, without spoiling anything, and it doesn't really spoil anything because our main antagonist, she's, the one that's causing this pandemic, doesn't really explain as to why she is the way she is, why she's infecting all these people, how she got that parasite in her armpit, which is really freaking weird. Which
that is
honestly,
the star of the movie. That just idea that she has this horrible mutation.
Completely and utterly revolted by human contact. Thank you, David Cronenberg, for making me see the light of day. I will no longer hug people.
This is the moral of the movie. Zero human contact. Yes, all of this is great. So I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it had some loftier goals in it than I thought it would. It was really playing with some kind of cool big themes that I don't know, it kind of reminded me of some of the Romero movies where there's some subtle nods to bigger themes, but the movie isn't about loftiness. It's kind of about the story unfolding in front of you. It had that feeling to it. There is that too, yes. You can't get past this, Nick.
Lots and lots of gratuitous nudity. I think that this movie was geared towards me, but honestly, I wouldn't necessarily say that I thought this movie was the best movie of all time. It
So in
definitely.
the Cronenberg series that we're covering, this is the earliest one. From this point on, Cronenberg's going to get into bigger and bigger and bigger movies that he's done, culminating at the end of our series with The Fly, which is kind of one that broke into the mainstream.
Don't
Scanners is another one too.
spoil it, Brian. Don't
I don't
spoil.
think.
I don't
Okay.
care.
They know what we're covering. It's Cronenberg at this point. I did enjoy this film. I actually had a lot of issues with where it ended in the third act, but the very ending, I think, tied it all together and made this movie that I'd be willing to rewatch and get into it. There are high points, there are low points. Overall, I thought it was good, kind of tense, kind of lacking in horror elements. The body horror was surprisingly
Tame.
I would say tame and
Lackluster.
also pretty like non-existent. Like there were a lot of scenes where it didn't happen. So I think I'm going into this with some cultural baggage about what I think Cronenberg's all about. But in this one of his earlier films, I don't think he's become what everyone thinks he is yet. So I want to see that evolve in the next few movies that we watch. That's what I'm going to be tracking.
That's the plan.
Yes. So, yes, that was a vague description, and people who are watching this might not know what we're talking about, but you will venture into spoiler territory with us. We're going to break this movie down. We're going to be a lot more specific. So, without further ado, got to the film.
And when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
I like, what is it with 70s movies and this always this psychosexual violence? Like, it's an obsession. This is during like the heydays of psychoanalysis. Everyone's into Freud and Jung, and it's all about this
I
stuff.
feel like it's also the heyday of pornography, adult films.
I'm sure those things are rising in parallel, and I think there's a reason for that. There's this bigger kind of subtextual thing going on.
And my
People
favorite
are
part,
obsessed with it.
Bush.
Yeah, this is a recurring theme with you. It is. If we watch the evolution of Nick, like we're watching the evolution of Cronenberg, 70s films have awoken something in you.
Bring back the Bush, ladies. Bring back the Bush.
Oh boy, okay. This is how we're starting our review segment.
Flawless.
Honestly,
You cannot chain me down, buddy. You cannot chain these lips.
Stopped trying years ago.
Yep.
So the premise of this movie to me is really provocative and interesting. There's a motorcycle accident. It happens to occur near a kind of experimental surgery, plastic surgery place for, it seems like kind of high profile clients, probably cutting edge of plastic surgery and cosmetic surgery and things like that. And there's pretty horrific injuries apparently, we're told, from this crash. And they take her in to do surgeries, and it involves a skin graft, which is kind of a run-of-the-mill routine surgery. My brother had third-degree burns once, and he got a skin graft treatment. It's horribly painful, but it's done normally, and I don't think it requires crazy specialty. I don't know what it was like in the 70s, but apparently this was a highly experimental skin graft treatment. I don't know what that means. I don't know if the writer knew what that meant, but it was, and it led to everything else in the movie.
Which I don't understand how the fuck that could happen, but there you go.
I get the idea where the doctor was talking about how essentially there is a almost fetus-like ability in these cells where they can regrow any part of your body, because every cell of your body holds all of the genetic information of all the rest of you. So you can move skin from one place to another, and that's kind of like a locus of like regeneration for that area. And in
turn, it turns into parasite.
And like the idea of all these terms are so confused. We heard parasite, we heard an alternate form of rabies, and then we also see a genetic skin mutation on the protagonist, the woman character.
Antagonist, whatever you want to call it.
It's really interesting because there's zero interest in making that clear, and I love mystery in a movie, but this didn't seem like conscious mystery. They made it like weaving it in. It seemed like you get it. We're just gonna get on.
So they made her out to be like she doesn't understand, like she isn't malicious whatsoever about her actions. Like she doesn't know what's going on. They kind of made that clear at the end of the movie, whether she's intending on harming these people. It's just this bloodlust that takes over, and this need for warmth, and her eating food makes her sick, and it's just the parasite's way of, controlling her. And that's probably the most scariest thing about this movie.
That's a good angle. But so the interesting thing is you are sitting there wondering about her psychology the whole time. Of like, what is she? Does she hate doing this in the moment? Does she know she's doing it and she's just morally repulsed with herself? And near the end of the movie, we get some answers where it's clear that she is trying to starve herself to not kill her friend. She's going to like a pornography theater to just let this guy come hit on her, and then she's like, all right, I'll kill this guy, not my best friend. So she starts picking who she's, maybe not killing, right, but feeding on. Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting element, but it's surprising how little internal conflict there is with her about feeding on these people and her ignorance of the fact that she's spreading it, or her ignorance of the fact that an entire pandemic blossomed out of just her getting this mutation. Like, she didn't seem to wrestle with these things until the very end. It took her husband coming in here and kind of out of thin air connecting the dots and telling her, you're patient zero, you caused all of this. To which she runs what she called a test to see if that were true. There's a lot of stuff that...
Which I thought was ridiculous, by the way.
I didn't think that was the right ending. Now, I should say, my saving grace for this movie, the very ending is what I wanted the whole movie to be like. Dark, nihilistic stuff. They just loaded this girl's body, who by the end we were meant to kind of sympathize with her. And by the way, the actress did a good job. Like, her acting was actually very good. They hired her for different reasons, so I've seen from different reviews. But she actually pulled, like, pretty competent and did a good job pulling this off.
I totally would like to check out her other discography.
We'll leave that there, Nick.
Scientific.
Do your research, and you know what?
Scientific research for sure.
I thought she was perfectly...
I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but I would like to see her work.
Yes. Okay. Perfectly talented woman. Good for her.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
At the very end, we're loading her body into a garbage truck, and then crushing it, and then at the end of the movie, that's how this movie needs to feel. I love that. Rewatching it, knowing that that's how it ends. I think it would be better. But
the way that it was pulled off didn't land for me whatsoever.
Yeah, the movie as a whole, I can't say I was sitting here like rooting for it. I think it fell short in too many ways, which is kind of disappointing because I would have
loved for her to be caught mid like feeding session, and then somebody shoots her, or like a fucking police squad just unloads on her, Red Dead Redemption, John Marston style.
Yeah, like I love, you brought up American Werewolf and the reaction, and that type of ending is what made that movie amazing. It's like a Shakespearean tragedy. At the end of it, it's just everything is just broken and destroyed, and there's all this emotional attachment that's being shattered.
Yeah.
This film could have had that too.
I only brought up American Werewolf because of the adult theater.
But it was a good parallel. Like, I really do think the same idea of like he's being transformed into this thing he doesn't understand, and he hates himself for having to do these things. He's morally just distraught about his own actions that he can't control. That's a terrifying plot idea, and we also have it here. But there's such a interest in showing us stuff that's happening and unfolding, and not much of an interest in kind of telling us what's going on internally with the character. And that's where these types of movies, slow burn, psychological thriller, kind of partial horror adjacent style movies, that's where they succeed. And in this movie, we didn't get a lot of that internal stuff. We didn't get a lot of kind of in-your-face horror stuff, which can carry a movie if they don't have that internal stuff. And we also didn't get a lot of body horror either, which is kind of what Cronenberg's big thing is now. So I think it was just an interesting premise, but am I willing to just watch a premise unfold for an hour and 30 minutes? You know, like I didn't feel riveted the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What were things that we liked about it?
I liked how she was infecting people.
Oh, very disturbing. Like, the most disturbing way you can drink blood out of someone's body and infect them is this weird thrusting motion she did with her elbow mutation. It was clearly trying to be a violative thing. Very terrifying. That was pretty crazy.
just sucking blood through a person like a crazy straw.
Yeah.
Very detailed. I definitely like the rabies characters.
They did a good job.
Yeah, they did a really good job. Foaming green from the mouth, and that jackhammer scene was pretty fucking intense.
There's when the people have rabies, they clearly go into these phases of, depending on how hungry they are, they have various levels of intelligence, and they kind of regress into more animalistic, thoughtless behaviors as they get hungrier. So sometimes you have people using tools. The woman character, who kind of seemed to maintain the most human intellect, maybe because she was his patient zero, really could be cunning and use social people and like put herself in a vulnerable position to make the man vulnerable. Like she'd use that trick. And that was interesting. The other characters, I liked seeing the extreme on the other end. Like how the rabies made them animalistic, crazy, just bloodthirsty things. That was a good balance.
The scene on the train where that lady wasn't looking too good.
Yeah, no one seemed to realize.
You put yourself in that situation, and that is fucking horrifying for sure.
Terrifying. Yeah, I'd be out of there. Banging on the doors, banging on the windows. I think the near the end of the film, it was clear they were going for a desolate, dreary, pandemic-ridden area. It was kind of cool. They flirted with the idea of having, like, here's how the government would respond to this. And that had some of those nihilistic elements of, like, we look to a person in power, we see them on the news station, and they say, sorry, you just have to kill them, because they'll just die anyways. So if you see someone, you shoot them in the head. And that's terrifying.
This movie definitely reminded me of George Romero's The Crazies, for sure, with the whole quarantine outlook and the government killing infected and just wiping people out left and right, trying not to let this virus get across borders and stuff.
I want to be in that room. And in this movie and in other movies, tell me, well, firstly, to be safe and be the decision maker and not the victim.
I want to be in this world where hell is just breaking loose.
Put me in there. This is where I'm supposed to be. No, I don't want to be a soulless, calculating person who's like, oh, you got to kill him. But there's going to be a moral dilemma in government. Show us that. That'd be amazing to see what it's like to be like, oh my God, the only logical choice, since there isn't a cure, is to murder people and try to make a cure.
I believe they definitely do that in The Crazies.
Really?
For sure.
See, like, that's really interesting stuff. Like, we kind of got a really successful version of that in Night of the Living Dead. They showed just enough of how the government was responding. And then in Day of the Dead 2, and also in Dawn, we'd get like these scientists talking about what was happening and these philosophers having debates about the morality of what's happening. And that's just like, it feels like such a realized version of the world. Like everything was kind of thought out. This didn't have all of those elements. And it would have been cool because we watched this pandemic happen and then we watched the aftermath. And we could have watched all these things unfold in real time. And we kind of just got a kind of short, limited scope of a movie that kind of ran on this relationship between the girlfriend or wife and her husband or boyfriend or whatever, and it's like they never felt like they were together.
Yeah.
Like they were on a bike smiling, but then they almost like forgot the other existed for a long time. And the husband just like couldn't drive his car to where the wife was for an hour. Like he just couldn't get there. And it was kind of infuriating. It didn't feel like there was a connection there. It didn't feel like there were stakes or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Watching this movie, I didn't think I'd be talking about it the way I am. Because when I was watching it, I enjoyed it. And I'm surprised now that we're maybe 50 minutes into a podcast, I'm like kind of railing on it. But yeah, I think it could have been more realized. That doesn't mean it wasn't enjoyable to watch, though.
It was an enjoyable watch for sure, especially looking at it through a lens of never seeing a single Cronenberg film. We're kind of going from not necessarily the beginning, because we're not doing a verbatim from beginning to end
Or
marathon.
like a full filmography of Cronenberg. Yeah, we're not doing that.
Well, I think eventually we'll get to like 100%ing Cronenberg's movies as sort of like an achievement or whatever. But this is more of a we're following a yearly chronological way of moving forward. Anyways,
yeah.
It was pretty interesting watch, but I definitely will say that it wasn't my favorite whatsoever.
Yeah, it needed something. It needed a different focus. I don't know what that would have been, but yeah, I don't know.
I would have liked to. I would have loved to see more of a outbreak happening, more chaos, more death, more government meddling and stuff. That would have been a welcome addition. Not seeing Santa Claus get gunned down by a inept police officer on duty.
The police officers were bad in this movie. Like, it's coming from a place where, like, the writer, in this case Cronenberg, probably didn't, like, how do police respond to situations? Oh wait, they just shoot submachine guns into crowds at the mall, right? And then get mad when they kill innocent bystanders? That is not how it's done. Not at all.
No. Oh, is this your wife? Shows just a corpse.
Just takes him to a frozen corpse and just coldly goes, "Oh, what, that your wife?" He said, "No, but like, you took me to my corpse? You didn't even tell me that's where we were going?" That's horrible. That's cold, no pun intended. I don't know how I didn't jump on that before. Pity laugh? Come on, something. No, pity laugh. You're just gonna make me steep in silence.
Pity laugh? Anything? No, nothing.
No. I thought it was kind of up your alley. I thought it might work.
You thought it was up my alley, but you took a wrong turn there, buddy.
Took a wrong turn. All right, noted. What
series we'll definitely cover in the future?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Are we done with Guts? Do you have anything else you want to say?
No.
I enjoyed it, but I want way more out of Cronenberg. I know I'm gonna get it, but I'm antsy to like see his later films. So I'm waiting to get there. I'm ready to move on.
All right, let's get to
the eulogy.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. May God be with this young man's soul. And may Rod Lane rest in peace.
Dearly horrific, we are gathered here today to lay this film to rest. RABID, 1977, directed by David Cronenberg. What an interesting film you turned out to be. You didn't really satisfy that itch I was looking for, but you've given me something to look forward to. So, how are we, quote-unquote, burying this movie?
Well, I think it's obvious, right? The hearse got in a horrible accident, and the casket ejected, right? And now, for some reason, the casket is being subjected to experimental surgery, which is holding the videotape. It has to be a VHS tape of RABID, and then it dies on the table, and then we bury it. Did that work?
Then
Repeat
we drop
it to me really quick. No, hold on. Say that back to me. You got it?
It gets in a car accident.
Good. Okay.
And then it gets subjected to experiments.
That's right.
And it dies on the table.
Right.
And then a piano falls on top of it.
Yes. Piano falls on it. We bury it. And then it falls off the interstate because the whole time we've been on a grave plot on the back of a truck driving down the highway. It falls off the bridge, hits another truck. Yeah, which is funny enough, not that different from a scene in this movie where every bad star lined and this poor person got hit by like 30 vehicles.
I was legitimately waiting for Roadrunner to be like, meet me. Yeah. It's just fucking off.
Deal. An anvil, a block of cheese, a banana peel, just every cartoon.
Yeah. All right. Are you getting voices, Brian?
I think
Are
I'm
you
getting
hearing
voices, yeah.
things?
I'm hearing things.
Well, sometimes that is better.
Taken straight off of IMDb as usual, because I'm totally creative with these things. But, you know, if you would like to have your voice heard, people, just
I would love that. Please comment.
comments on the next movie. Comment on our current reaction, which is obviously
Oh,
Rabid.
it's so confusing. Because we're doing
It's
the
not that
Brood
confusing. We're doing what is next, Brian? Check our list.
next? Is it the Brood? Let me see. All right, next is the Brood.
Okay.
If
So
you've seen the Brood, comment on this video about your thoughts on the Brood, and then we might read them on air.
either comment on this video or comment on our reaction channel for sure, and we'll get to it on the next episode.
We'll see if that takes.
So this one is from Michael Elliott, published March 6th of 2013, titled it Above Average Horror Thriller. And there's no star rating. It just a half out of 4 whatever.
Okay.
Let's see. David Cronenberg's rather bleak horror tale is a pretty good film, although it does suffer from a few flaws that keeps it from being much better. A lot of the attention goes to Chambers, who was attempting to make a mainstream crossover after appearing in the hardcore porn film Behind the Green Door. I really thought she did a pretty great job with what was asked from her, as the director perfectly used her to benefit the story. Her sexuality was the best thing in the picture, and I especially liked the way Cronenberg used it to help spread the virus. After all, the majority of the victims were those attracted to her, and it's almost like there was an STD fear lurking behind the main story.
Interesting. I hadn't fully thought about that take on it. I can see that.
A nice little social commentary on HIV.
We should
or
watch
whatever.
It Follows. That's probably one of the more effective commentaries on that.
You've
'cause it's
been
very direct.
You've been wanting me to watch It Follows.
I do, because I feel like you think anything published after a certain time is just garbage, but there's still passionate horror lovers who make good movies. So I want you to see some of those.
Definitely,
So-
for sure. I will give it a try. I will not avoid it like I did the Blair Witch Project.
Yes. Yeah, I think that was a good review. I think that's very fair.
Yeah.
And he points out the protagonist's sexuality being like a really important part of the movie. It is really interesting and worth probing into about how this movie is just levered around sex. Even her mutation is essentially like just this weird amalgamation of different sex organs. Like, it's really, there's thought behind it. It just didn't feel like the movie earned whatever lofty things it was trying to talk about, because ultimately it was kind of a simple story. And yeah, but I get where he's coming from. I get the idea. I think that there's art in it, and that has to be acknowledged.
We'll definitely see where Cronenberg leads us on this wonderful, horrific amalgamation journey that we're being taken on. And my face totally isn't melting right now, and I'm not full of parasites and all that good stuff. My true form has yet to be seen.
Subscribe to Patreon to see Nick's true form.
Subscribe to our Dan.
Oh God, please. We'll do anything if you subscribe to the Dan tier.
I'll send you nudes, man. No.
Okay. Ebert did not review this. He has reviewed a number of Cronenberg films, but not Rabid, which is interesting. So I went on IMDb and I took a positive review off of IMDb. This is from Red Barracuda 17 from 2012. The age of usernames. I don't feel like I've made a username in such a long time. He calls it a fascinating second feature from the master of body horror. Gave it a 9 out of 10. This is an abridged version of this guy's review. A biker called Rose crashes near an unorthodox surgery, which is a weird way of putting that. She is taken there for emergency treatment, which entails a new experimental skin graft operation. Rose develops a phallic appendage that she uses to attain human blood, the only thing that can sustain her new biology. In doing so, she maims her victims, transmitting a form of rabies onto them. I think that's a very sensible review or summary of what happened to her. That's all the movie really tells us. David Cronenberg's debut feature, Shivers, was an extremely bold, original, and visceral film. He followed it up with Rabid, which explores similar territory. In some ways, it's a more expansive film, but overall it's less intense. In this story, the virus affects a whole city, so Cronenberg is able to incorporate more locations and action. It would only be fair to say that the science is somewhat less clear and more ambiguous in Rabid 2. We never really know how it comes to be that Rose develops her mutation. All we know for sure is that it's an unexpected side effect of the skin graft surgery. We also never really understand Rose's motivation, although it does seem like she's unaware of her bloodlust. The film itself is an interesting twist on the vampire myth, with the influence of George Romero never far from the surface, with some references to the likes of the Crazies. Pleasingly, as well as being idiosyncratic as Cronenberg is, Rabid works as a pure horror film. I've kind of some pushback on that. There are plenty of gory set pieces and grotesque rabid lunatics. The Canadian setting provides other value too. The cold landscapes and sterile urban architecture really accentuates the feeling that Cronenberg is going for, while the ending is just nihilistic for this perfect story. I think that's great. I think that gives a lot of leeway to the movie, which is earned. I think, like everything he's saying, I think there's an argument for it. It's not a 9 out of 10 for me, but I'm glad this person saw a lot in it. I think that's interesting.
I'm really happy that I'm not the only one that kind of picked up on George Romero's The Crazies vibes.
I saw Crazies mentioned in a lot of reviews. I think it must be kind of like it may have been
like a homage.
It may have been like, I guess when you see it popping up that much, it might have been like a form of appreciation from Cronenberg to Romero, which is pretty cool.
But my favorite part about this movie is Dick was here on the wall, in prison.
I think the boom operator scribbled that on with a pen or something. I don't know what that got.
Honestly, that was probably the best kill in the movie too. The shotgun blast to the chest.
Yeah. Thinking back, like I don't know what really stuck out to me about much of any. It
had the best. It probably had the best graphic violence on the screen.
Yeah, I'd say
it was the shotgun blast.
Most of this movie aimed to be like psychologically disturbing.
I love how
the cops who are just like, there's a person standing here, I'll blow them into pieces with a shotgun.
I love how I made reference to Santa Claus before I even knew that there was a Santa Claus in the movie.
Santa Claus death. Yeah.
Fucking, that's crazy.
All Santas have a hard enough life, okay? You don't shoot them with SMGs.
Kris Kringle is gonna kringle underneath the soil.
What are we talking about?
It's my new horror movie that I'm making. It's the subtitle for the
all that is just the subtitle.
Mm-hmm. Kris Kringle is gonna kringle underneath the soil.
Oh, that's
where he's buried.
That old indie film, Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Henry Ford, which is just the title. There's more. It's crazy. Okay. I guess we're ready for the final cut.
Final cut. Cut. All right. So
starting with a bang.
So we are here. We are full of energy. Woohoo! The moment you've all been waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm giving David Cronenberg's Rabid a 6 out of 10 slashes. I enjoyed what I saw on the screen, but at the same time, I wasn't riveted. I had a lot of questions that weren't really answered. They were just left out in the open. A lot of things that didn't make any sense, like Rose's boyfriend just being like, "You're the one who's been causing all of this." Yeah. Like that he didn't. There was no clues for him to be like, "Oh, the only thing that he saw was her feeding on a corpse."
Yeah.
I mean, what are the odds that could be that those two things can coincide together.
Yeah, and even seeing the mutation, how does he know that the mutation is the patient zero effect that led to a full pandemic? It was not clear. Yeah.
Yeah, very far-fetched, for sure. So yeah, 6 out of 10. Wasn't the worst movie, which would have been just somebody swinging their dick in front of a screen. And it wasn't the best movie, like American Werewolf in London. So
I think that's fair. I like that rating. I'm trying to not rate these in advance anymore. I just do it on the spot in this segment. So
how are you feeling?
I feel like
I feel like I am a slice of cheesecake pancakes out of waffle.
Okay. I don't know how we got here, but I'm glad you told me this.
It's a lack of sleep, buddy. My brain is all over the place. I only got 1 hour of sleep.
You're still going. Nick's trucking along in the name of Black Lagoon Network. Okay, I feel like where 0 is a black screen that punches you for watching it, and 10 is the thing. This is a 6.5 for me. This is a 6.5. It is not anywhere close to being a bad movie. It's not even a mediocre movie. This is a good film, and it has some artistic merit behind it. And I can tell that it's trying to do a lot. There's ambition underneath the film, and I really like that. The story is fascinating. It just wasn't executed the way I wish it was, and it missed so many chances to be more than it was. We were just kind of watching events unfold, and we weren't really getting into the deeper, more interesting territory of what the fallout of this type of pandemic would be. So,
what number did you give it, Brian? It went right over my head because I wasn't.
6.5.
Okay.
Is that why you were giggling for a minute straight?
Yes.
6.5.
Because all I could imagine was just you talking and me just being like.
He gave it a 10? Yeah.
Just an echo of your voice, and not me comprehend. Yes.
I see.
English. English is my first language. Did you not know?
I liked it.
Did you know not? Yeah. I thought it was okay. And I cannot wait to see what we're gonna get as we delve further into his primordial body horror that he's known for. So
the architecture of this film, if I were to kind of like place that into what I think Scanners is, I'm excited. That's a good mix. Like I want to see that movie.
I give this movie wiener barf.
Horrible. That's terrible. Where is this coming from? That's horrible. I hate all of it.
The amount of boobs, I give it wiener barf.
You're dissolving in front of me.
What am I, Mentos and Coke?
Something happened to you, Nick. Everybody, thank you for watching. We appreciate you. We are glad that you're here. Continue watching.
Thank you for coming and stopping by.
Yes.
Cronenberg unintentionally made another jizz joke, but thank you for
staying in
all over my face. Thank you for staying on my face. Stay on my face.
Oh, God. That's gonna be the most chaotic ending we've
Thank you
done.
for staying. Thank you for.
Why are we still here?
Thank you for watching Black Lagoon reviews. Oh my God! Thank you for coming by. Thank you for help.
If you're here, we appreciate you. Continue watching.
This is being edited out. I'm gonna edit.
We love you. Thank you. Stay tuned for more Cronenberg. Join the Patreon, Cult of the Black Lagoon. Watch more reactions and give us suggestions. We watch stuff you tell us to watch. Tell us what to watch. We'll do it.
Milk
All right?
me.
Goodbye.